It's okay, I forgot my iPad anyway, so it don't really matter. I guess I should probably put this away. No, I don't do it. I don't light them inside anyway, but I even think they stink, but I enjoy smoking them in the car.
They don't taste good either, so I can't chew it for you.
I do that myself.
Good evening. I'll call the workshop for Tuesday, July 28, 2015. Order, please, soon join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And the first item, please.
Is trail parking?
This was an item maybe a couple months ago now. I had brought up, asked staff to look at possible additional trail parking because of the new trail. The boat launch is often at the 196 in Frost Hill is often very busy, and I had almost witnessed a crash on Frost Hill because cars are lined on both sides of it. So this is a follow-up from that request from staff. Just so you guys do know, we do have packets here that were given to us tonight because Ryan could not be here. So we do have memos from him and Diane, but the agenda was done after we knew that he couldn't be here. So
I think maybe Mark probably has the most up-to-date information on trail parking. You had a discussion with me. Maybe you want to relate that to council because the area that you scoped out is pretty much the same area I felt would be the best. And in talking to Dylan, he did as well. So.
yeah.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what you have as for a packet from what Ryan gave you, but
There's nothing in here on trail parking.
Good, then I
Sorry.
won't look any further.
then I don't need to know.
You are to start us off.
You are the star.
All right, well, that'd be a first. What we're looking at is the parking lot that the railroad company, is it Pan Am, whoever it was, well, they put together a parking lot. I think there's like a 22-spot parking lot down on Capitol Avenue that's never used. There's a bunch of railroad ties back there. It's adjacent to the tracks, probably from loading and offloading back when there was an active track. And with the problem with parking off Frost Hill Avenue, it just makes sense to activate that as a parking lot and have access to the trail from that area. There is I don't know if it's a trail that was made years ago, but you can almost see where there's a road that goes across the tracks and down to where the existing trail is. And with a little modification, maybe, I'm not sure what kind of permission we need to get from railroad folks, but with a little bit modification of that current roadway that goes down that area, and if you can visualize off to the left, we have a larger parcel of land that the town of Lisbon owns that that's behind ETTI, and we just put 2 sets of benches back there. We put a couple picnic tables back there, and it would be perfect for a future park, a passive park, maybe a shelter with some picnic tables and just green space. That's an option. The other option, or additional option, was to, I was talking to Dylan about this earlier, is why not look at how much land we own at the entrance to the Androscoggin River Trail at Davis Street. There might be 3 or 4 spaces. Even 3 or 4 spaces would make a difference at that end of the trail. And that's what I have about parking.
I'll pass my iPad around real quick. I took a look at it on Google Earth, and it's this section right here, the tan. If you guys want to look at it,
Yep.
I had originally was walking on the path trying to find a spot where we could do something like this, and I had thought it would be a good idea to have, if we could utilize that space. At the point in time, I didn't know that the town owned it, because if we had access there, people that are handicapped or have a disability if they could drive down there and utilize the picnic tables that are there on the path, then the folks that can't get out and walk the path could utilize that space as well. And in conversation with Mark, we were thinking the same thing. We just hadn't talked about it yet. So I think that, Mark's thought with putting a hut there and using that space is a good idea. I went on it this weekend to take a closer look at it, and I kind of roamed around the area. And I don't think changing this over would be a big deal. Maybe just, push the grass back that's there and flatten out a little bit with some equipment, and we could use it as a parking lot. But I don't know what T's we got to cross and I's to dot to get access over there.
We can research that for you.
Okay.
Some of that property still belongs to the railroad company?
Yeah, well, yes, it still does, because of, it's DOT that owns that.
Right,
Dylan, can I take a look at that? real
Yeah.
quick?
But this piece we're talking about the town owns now.
right. But we're still gonna have to get some
There
kind
was-
of
there was
approval
a-
from them though, right?
There was an access
do
at
this.
one time across the railroad tracks to that spot.
And
years ago.
I think Mark's idea about trying to identify some spaces at the end of Davis Street would also be important, because right now people just park on the side of the road there. And if we have more designated spots come down over that hill, sometimes it is a little tricky there.
Yep.
Something we could
Yep.
look into of how we can get across the railroad
Yeah.
tracks to get back there.
We'll look into that, and Ryan and I thought about the end of Davis Street to try to find out who owns some property there. Maybe we can find some additional parking.
Okay.
Now, they're gonna be pulling those rails up with the rails to trails, right?
Eventually.
Eventually.
I don't believe that the DOT is gonna give, they're very willing to work with Pan Am.
Yeah.
Now that Pan Am is, that's on the other end anyway, so.
Yeah.
I don't think there'd be a major problem with it at all. And there was a temporary crossing there at one time anyway, so.
I think that would be very nice if we could get an entranceway in the middle of that segment there, because
Yeah.
that's quite a long segment for,
Right.
people with families and kids and stuff, but they could get in there and use that middle area by that park would be a really nice little spot in there. It was easier for people to access it.
All right.
Keep letting folks know.
Yeah.
I think it's important to let them know that they can also park at the high school and access it from the tennis courts, and they can walk down by the track. And right now, there's no real clear definition of where you access it from there, but I remember when we first started talking about this trail, that was going to be part of the plan. So I'm not sure where it's at right now, but that would be ideal, because there's quite a few parking lot spots up there by the tennis courts, and down by the track. And the other- go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mark.
I was thinking also that we were talking a little bit about the park and ride, and that the trail really isn't quite finished, and there's some questions whether that's going to be finished this year or not. And we were talking that if you're walking the trail, you probably wouldn't park at the park and ride and go down. But if you're riding or running, that would also be another place to park. But I think the important thing is, when we're talking about signage later, is to educate and inform people where these spots are and have maps available so that people know where to park and to access the trail. There's several spots that they could do. Just got to let them know.
I'm all about utilizing the land we have and before buying more land. I think that's an important piece. Diane, Mark brought up a good point about at one point when this trail was talked about having access from the football field down to the trail. Can you follow up with someone on the school side and
Yeah.
see if that's something that we can work on
Yeah.
as well?
I'll do that.
All right. Council have anything else on this?
I know at one point we talked about leasing some of the parking lot in there by the Big Dipper. I don't know if we'd talked to them and if they were receptive or not, or what it would cost us to do that, to get more parking spaces, at that, near the boat launch area.
They might sell you a car right out from underneath you if you park your car there too long.
Yeah, that's right.
I just know we'd talked about at some point of,
I'm not sure whether they're at.
the idea of,
Randy was gonna offer it to it, but I think his brother beat us to it.
okay,
So, I think his brother's got more money than
yeah.
we have, so.
Well, we've got some options here.
All right. So we'll move this to another agenda. We'll get some questions answered and move that on. And this leads us right into the item number 4, trail signage.
I just want to start with the trail mile markers. Those and the bike racks will go out just as soon as Public Works finishes up with the prep work for this year's paving as far as lifting the manhole. They're really busy trying to get all of that stuff done for the paving. And hopefully within another week here, they'll be able to get that out.
Do we already have the
We have everything, it just needs to be installed.
Okay.
He did say, you know, if you want to alert people from out of town to the location of the walking trail, we could always file an application for one of those DOT signs that can go on Route 196, if that's the way we want to go. We could probably file an application, put an application, and we should be able to get at least 1 or 2 of those.
I think the more advertising we can do for the trail, the better. Because I've talked to several people that from out of town that come and use it here, and I think we want to encourage that because hopefully they'll come and spend some money at our stores and buy lunch or even a bottle of water or something.
Where will the bike path? Do you know where the bike racks are going to be placed?
I don't.
Do you
Mark does.
We're gonna have, we're having them blocks of 4. We're gonna have 4 of them at MTM. We're gonna have 4 down at the Miller end of where the downtown Miller. We have to get permission from Miller, or if we have any town-owned land, we're gonna put some down there. We want to encourage people to, use the bike path, park downtown, and then use the stores downtown on Main Street in front of Cooperative Extension.
Oh, that'd be a good one.
We have to. Where are the other places? Boat launch. We have some plan for the boat launch.
Also be out here, town office, something like that.
Town office, yeah.
And then also at the beginning of the trail, the park in the Lisbon area. We're gonna have something down in the Lisbon area as well.
Oh, good. And those were all purchased through a grant we had, right?
Those were all through the Health Main Street grant. Those are the mile markers.
That's good. I completely agree with Mark on signage is very, very important, and I had told Mark earlier, I had talked with him, Mark Stevens, that I was in McDonald's and a family come in, they were from Bath, and they were looking for the trail, and they drove 196 a couple of times, they couldn't find it, and I just heard them, talking about it. So I told them where it was, and, to me that's sad that we have this expensive trail, that's a nice trail, and we don't have some sort of marker to identify our people that are coming from out of town. I personally think we need some sort of big sign down there in that green space when you turn onto Frost Hill where we have those trees that, advertise the walking trail somehow. I don't know if we want to have a blanket name or have all 3 names on one sign with a map. I'm not sure how would be best and what Tracy would think or Mark, but I think we need to do something to really get it out there and people that would drive by to see the sign to know that's where the walking path is. I think it would be expensive, but I think every penny spent on it would be, well received by the public. I don't know what anyone else thinks.
Fine with me.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to explore what options we have there.
Something. On a side note, the picnic tables down there, is there any plan to replace those?
Yeah, they're falling apart.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we have some at the shelter at Middle Pond that we're going to replace them with.
Cool, because I was down there this weekend and was a little curious whether I should sit on the
You tested them.
I did. I found spots where I thought were, good.
Good feedback.
They're being utilized a lot, too. Every time I'm down there, somebody's there having lunch.
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't know what, from Tracy's perspective is, from economic development portion, but from the paper mill and, the 2 trails, paper mill and
River Trail.
thank you.
ART.
River Trail. They have white signs. And if you pull into Lisbon Community School, there's one on the left there that doesn't stick out. I would suggest that we don't stick with that format and that design, something that really catches the eye,
Hmm.
really nice.
Like,
Talk with Ryan about that as well, and work with Mark, is because in having them where they're all kind of uniformed and they look the same, I think when the trails were done, it was just to have something kind of up there, but nothing really matches.
Mm.
Hodgepodge. So the idea of it is, I'm sure Mark would agree that what he would want to do and see there is something that just is formed and looks professional and looks real nice, so you know what each trail, you know, that you go through. Again, if you're looking at the type of signage and then pricing it out on what that would be. Could there be new signage for all of them? If that's what council wants to do, and if I'm looking at Mark's head shaking, I think he'd like to see that probably as well.
well, each trailhead should have its own sign that indicates where you're going right before you walk down that trail. We're doing the same thing at the park. We're looking at what our trail signs, are they clear? We have nothing at the Beaver Park entrance that explains the rules of the park. I mean, those are the same kinds of things, consistency from the park to the trails. That's what we're looking at right now.
I think that's a good point to have it consistent. But one of the things that I was thinking, we didn't, when we just did our budget, we didn't plan to spend a lot of money on signs. So this year, I would like to see our focus be that one nice big sign at the boat launch, personally, and then to really catch people's attention to show where the trail, the main launch is for the trail, and then next year, hopefully, the council could put more money in the budget to do the other signs to match it. I don't think this year we could afford to do all the signs at once. But if we could do the main one, I think that'd be important, personally.
Has anybody ever looked into, down to the boat launch, a large kiosk? We have one.
There is one.
There is one now.
Yeah, there is one.
Why
It's
can't we
two-sided.
utilize that real well?
We-
We do at Topsom, and it works out very well for us. We can, we change it, open it up, change the information.
Yeah.
Put everything in, and you can have smaller ones, and they don't cost a lot of money.
Yeah. Are you saying have one at maybe at the other trailheads?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, and just a small, have them all
true. That's a
conform
good
to
idea.
the same look.
Mhm.
They're just two smaller ones and one big one. They don't cost a lot of money.
Right.
I mean, we can afford it, and we got a good sized one down there.
Yeah.
And, it didn't, matter of fact, one of our members built it for us. We just bought the material. I don't think we had $300 in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you've already got one,
We have one down at the boat launch, and it's two-sided. It's a pretty good size.
Yeah.
And the good thing about that, you can change the information out there, but,
yeah.
I was thinking something smaller at the trailheads.
Smaller ones at the other end.
right.
It's something, if we ain't got a lot of money, if we don't have a lot of money
Yep.
to work with, then it's something we can start with.
Yeah. We'll get somebody that's real creative at the park, because we have a good source of lumber there.
Yep.
Maybe somebody that's creative can build one for us.
They're fairly well, weatherproof inside if you've got and you can change everything
Piece
out.
of plexiglass. and-
Plenty of information can go there.
Yep.
It's just something to think about. I know down Topsom, as just a single club, we don't have a lot of money. We have to penny pinch where we can.
Mm.
And it's worked out very well. We've had a lot of compliments on it. And ours is right in J&S old parking lot, so.
Yep.
It's not an eyesore. So something to think about.
So what would council like to ask staff to do for us before the next time they would come back about this? I personally think that one main sign needs to be focused on and see how much that's gonna cost us first,
Get pricing for it, yeah.
and then go from there.
Yep.
Not be stingy on designing it, design something good that's gonna be there for 10,
What I
15
understand
years.
you're talking about is something that's going to not just advertise the new Androscoggin River Trail, but all the trail system.
So people know
Yes.
the trail system exists, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think something big.
Imagine the parking problems you'd have, you had that already.
Oh, I know. Well, that thing is important. That I think the reason why I put the parking and the trail signage on the same agenda, because when we do really start advertising it, the parking is going to get even worse. So we need to, all this needs to be in sync together so we can take care of parking at the same time And in the kiosk we have now, I think we need to utilize that to explain where we do have additional parking at the
Yep.
community school and
Yep,
so
we
forth,
can
as
do
we
that.
discussed. So I think we need to move this onto another agenda as well. I think we got some direction on where to go, and hopefully we can get something started before too long.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Number 5, fireworks ordinance.
I met with the police chief last week, and he is going to start issuing summonses now for violations. They've been doing the warning system and for quite a while, so it's now ready to graduate to the next step and start the summonses. And we'll go from there and see what happens, I guess. See if that's a deterrent. I don't know if it'll be or not. But if we have to get to the prosecution stage, our attorney will have to do it. The DA won't be doing any prosecutions.
On the changes that I supplied, I had a couple other things other than what I emailed out. The inclusion of Friday on Moxie Days, if it does not fall after the weekend after the 4th of July, that would be counter to what the state has as far as authorized days, because their days are only Saturdays other than the weekend before and after the 4th. We might want to consider cutting that back to just the Saturday and pretty much letting the Moxie Committee have Friday. The other question that was raised was about the noise. The one way around the noise issue would be to require permits, which is why I added the permit section in there. And one other item was the fact that we have it distance and no less than 100 feet from a building. I believe the state standard is 150 feet, so I don't know if we can cut that down to 100 feet. Either way, I can't see too many places in Lisbon where you can get 100 feet away from a building, much less 150. On the other side of the coin, if you start requiring permits, people would have to come in and sign saying, yes, I understand all this. It would add a little bit of oomph to the prosecution if they were within that. And add to the fact that if they're doing it without a permit, again, that's one more option for the police to enforce. I do believe someone wants to talk to me.
So I use fireworks. I live up on Free Street. I always follow the ordinance. So I would be all for a permit, definitely. Why not permit it? Why not charge a fee that, covers the cost of whatever administration would cost, or I don't necessarily, I was just actually talking to the police department earlier. I don't necessarily have 100 feet from a building, depends how you define a building.
True.
I have a fenced-in pool yard where there's a pump house out there. I'm 100 feet from garage, neighbors' houses. Neighbors don't have an issue with it.
I'd have to look at the ordinance, the state ordinance, but I believe it's an occupied building.
Okay, yes, I do believe
So I
it
don't
is,
believe
too.
I don't believe that would work. I don't think that would be a problem with the pump house, but I understand what you're saying.
But I would be all for some sort of permitting process, as opposed to just doing away with it, banning fireworks and still having no control over it, really.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, if police can issue, the fine or whatever, but I think it's $110 is a fraction of the cost of the fireworks.
Yes.
Trust me, it is.
I know, that's why I didn't do fireworks this year, I can't afford it. I believe the other change that I put was, with the exception of New Year's Eve, I think I reduced the time down to 10 PM.
What was it
The other
before?
change. I think it was midnight,
At 12:30.
yeah. I'm trying to
Now, the
remember
whole
what the state-
idea of the New Year's Eve is when the new
Yeah.
year hits.
Yeah, New Year's Eve, that was the one exception, was New
Right.
Year's Eve. But again, my biggest concern after doing this was, again, the Friday for Moxie, because if it doesn't come after the 4th of July, if for some reason we skipped a weekend, then technically we'd be in violation of the state statute. Again, I'm not sure how the 100 feet works. But again, I don't think the state's
So
gonna
the
come in.
state statute is 150.
The state statute says 150. We stay at 100. I'm pretty sure
We
the-
can't,
I'm pretty sure PD's gonna enforce this, not the state, but
Right.
still.
but our ordinance can't be less restrictive,
Yeah, that was
than
my
the state.
concern
The
there.
state, if the state says 150, we have to be at least 150.
That's what I understand, yes.
So we would need to change that.
So does this come up because you're getting a ton of emails, a ton of phone calls over this
A
still?
lot of complaints. And it's mostly about people who are doing it way outside
Yeah,
the authorized period.
every
Right.
weekend.
And doing it, yeah, every weekend, 1 o'clock in the morning, things like that.
Right.
Which, last year in my neighborhood, it was that way. This year was fine. Everybody was on the right days, they were done by before 10 o'clock. Everything was fine. But
It-
there are people that are, they're pushing it.
It does seem to have calmed down a lot since, I
Well.
mean, over the last few years.
The novelty wore off.
Yeah, definitely,
So
definitely.
it's not an everyday thing. Ooh, I can do it.
Yeah.
No, you
Not to
can't.
mention it's very expensive.
And one good thing
Yes.
is they are very expensive,
Very.
They are.
so.
Yeah, the novelty's even worn off for me now. It's kinda like, eh. It was
Yes.
fun while it lasted, but I'd still like to, have the option on
Yes.
those days, I guess.
I wouldn't promote, it, taking it off the books completely without sending it to referendum, to be honest. I mean,
Right.
it's- But we do have to give the police a little bit more, I guess, teeth to be able to enforce it. So I think, and the permit also covers the fire side of it too.
Right, I'm glad you put that in
Oh,
there.
that was one of the key things
Yep.
that is really kind of vague.
Yeah.
So if you're getting a permit, you have to sign a piece of paper saying, I understand this, and then we're in a real dry spell, you can say, sorry, you can't have a permit for
Right.
that day because it's too dry out, we don't wanna burn up the neighborhood. And one of the other things I also added that's also on the state site was the lanterns,
Oh, yeah.
which are kinda cool, cause I've done them before. And then I found out, oh no, they're illegal even to possess in the state of Maine, much less let them go. And thinking about it, yeah, that's probably true, cause if they come down.
I go question those things.
Yeah, it's like, I didn't think about it at the time, but after thinking about it, I was like, ooh, yeah, that would be a
didn't
really
think that
bad
that'd
thing. They
be-
come down in a big wooded area.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be ugly. So, yeah, they aren't even allowed to be sold or possessed in the state of Maine. so.
That's just a big ball of fire that floats up into the air.
Basically, yeah, it's a ball of fire below a cell phone bag, so they look cool going up.
Comes back down in the
Yeah, I don't wanna
forest.
be there when they come down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I added that just so people would be aware, because some people aren't. I know some of the people that were doing it this past weekend, I said, you do realize those are against the law, right? No, I didn't know that. Well, there you go.
I think one of our biggest problems we had was the PD wasn't enforcing it. And I'm glad that the manager met with the police chief,
Yes.
and they are now issuing citations. I mean, it's been several years, so it's about time that we're done with this, the warning portion. But when I was talking to a couple of the police officers, one of their biggest problems with it is they have to observe it
Yes.
to issue the citation.
Yes.
And by the time, neighbors calling them in and they get down there, sometimes they're all done, because they're expensive and people don't have an abundance of them sitting in their garage to light off typically.
Yes.
So I think it's a good start that you got here, Greg. I don't have a problem with it.
And I think there are provisions that say they can at least send them a nastygram if they get reports of somebody setting off fireworks and they don't have a permit. At least they can send them a nastygram saying, we have reports that you were doing fireworks and you don't have a permit, so. At least put them on the onus there. Hi, Dot.
Hi,
How are you today?
very good, thank you.
Dot.
On fireworks, the distance issue from dwellings, buildings, or whatever. Previous winter, my son has an almost 200-year-old farmhouse over in Litchfield, and the previous winter, he had a chimney fire. fire department was up on his roof and saw some roofing shingles badly damaged from fireworks. Now, they were shooting off fireworks all around him, but no one was even within 100 feet of his farmhouse. He's got no farmhouse with an attached barn. He cannot get fire insurance, and this really needs to be considered. The risk of anyone's home, garage, anything being burned down because of fireworks needs to be considered, please. I'm sure anyone shooting off fireworks would hate to see their neighbor's home burned down because of their having fun.
Council, have anything else on this?
I think it's a good idea. I would support it.
So we'll need to put it on the next agenda to go through the process, correct, Twyla?
Yes, you want to do a reading?
Yeah,
First
please.
reading? Okay.
Because then we'll have to go through the second reading, and then we'll have to wait the
Public
21-day period.
So the only thing I need to check is the distance.
And we'll need to edit the language for Friday Moxie Day, right?
Yeah, I would, just let the Moxie Committee have Friday. And if it's the weekend, not the weekend after the 4th, then they can't do it anyway, so.
Okay.
So so what you want to do is get rid of Saturday? Is that what
Get
you
rid of
said?
Friday.
Get rid of Friday.
The state statute says, the certain periods and every Saturday. That's the only day that's authorized other than the 4th and the weekend on either side of the 4th and New Year's. Those are the only days that they authorize it, so.
Has it always been that way, do you know?
I don't think the state's changed their statute, but I don't know. But I just looking, when I was doing this, I was looking it up. I happened to notice that it says the weekend on either side of the 4th.
So that's all we
basically you
have
can
to
do
put
that
in
whole
here, is
week.
the weekend on either side of,
And then after that, it's just Saturday.
not even mention Moxie, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know it either until I
We'll
looked,
have to.
until I actually read it. I was like, wow, okay. I thought it was all the time.
Yeah,
I think
that's
he
what I
wants
thought
to
too.
do he wants to do Saturdays, but add that one Friday for Moxie weekend. Is
No,
that what you
remove
have?
the Friday that's in
He,
here.
he
So
wants
they
to
don't
re-
have the fireworks on Saturday instead? Is that what you mean?
No,
He
no.
wants to authorize.
Consumer fireworks would be authorized on Saturday.
So Greg wants to allow only the Moxie Committee to set fireworks off on Friday.
Well, that's a whole different animal because they do it through the state. so.
So eliminate Friday.
Just eliminate the
Oh,
Friday from
It
there.
will just be Saturday.
Just Saturday.
Because right now we have allowing consumer fireworks on Friday and Saturday of Moxie weekend.
And we could run afoul of the state, so.
You just want to do Saturday.
Just Saturday.
Okay.
Council all set with this?
Yep.
Thank you, Greg, for your hard work. I know Greg's bored and my email
I was bored
starts.
that day, yes.
My email starts going off with all these attachments from Greg. I know something's going on with him.
It was raining and I had no way to do the projects I have outside, sorry.
All right, number 6, cameras for fuel pumps.
Yeah. Remember, we talked about this quite a few months ago. And since then, we've received an email stating that in 2019, one of our tanks is due to be removed. And when we do that, we're going to look at moving the actual fuel facility, maybe at a different location, and having both together. And if that's, when we do that, we'd only have to buy one system, one keyless system, and it would save us a lot of money. So in the interim, if there's a need to do anything, we suggest that we put cameras up. And we did get some quotes, and the cheapest quote we received was $8,079.55. But at this point, to buy a system now and then do something different in 4 years, we'd just be wasting our money. We'd be looking to do just a regular fuel canopy system, just like you would be driving up to a pump and
Yep.
have both your gas and diesel together.
Same spot.
Yep.
But
Do
for-
you,
Go ahead.
do you think that we lose that much fuel?
I don't think so.
Well, I'm just
I
saying,
don't have any-
would it be a benefit to the town to put a camera in, or,
I think it would if we suspected. anything. And I think, you know, you can look at the fuel readings from month to month and year to year, and you can pretty much tell if there's something going on, I would say.
But for these cameras, it's not just one for the fuel pumps. Includes
Security camera.
outside Public Works and the transfer
Right,
station.
exactly,
Yeah.
yes.
That's different.
And, you know, and the other thing is, if you get them now and use them now, you can just relocate them to another area. We may want them up at Beaver Park 4 years from now, you know, or just places where there's a lot of vandalism going on. And the way we would do that is we would charge it off that amount to each department. We'd figure out how much usage, percentage-wise, and that's how much each department, including the school, would pay for this. So your big users are your school, your public works, and your police, pretty much. Or we can do nothing.
I think I'd like to not do it. I think we need to do something.
Okay.
So if I'm looking at this correctly, from Seacoast Security for $8,079, in their sale quote, they have 3 outdoor cameras and 1 indoor camera, totaling 4, right?
Right.
And then for Custom Technology Group, they're proposing 6 outdoor cameras. So I'm assuming they all saw this. From reading the memo, it seems like they walked the site and they provided what they thought would be best for covering
Yep.
the area.
And that's 9,500, yeah.
So, the reason we're doing this is because we're suspecting that there's gas being stolen.
We're doing it because the system we have now, there's really, it's pretty much on an honor system. Not that we suspect anything is happening, it's, people have keys, and the keys go to, each department has keys, and it goes to that department's key system on the pump. But the keys aren't attached to a vehicle, they're not like assigned to a vehicle, so when you insert it, although I know that the water department and the police department, when they gas up, you know, they're calling in what their mileage is, and I believe those keys stay right in the vehicle, but that's not the case with everybody else. So I think it's more for checks and balances, because it's more or less on an honor system right now.
Can't we require that everybody takes a log on any time that they go to get fuel? So that it's all being, I know the police department said it's doing it.
Right.
Why can't we do that?
Oh,
with
so
the
you
school?
mean, yeah, so like the time of day and put down what their beginning mileage and ending
Like a
mileage?
logbook. If they're calling it in, why not have everybody call it?
Yeah.
We can do
Have a
that.
dispatcher, they
Yeah,
So that
put it
way
right there in the log,
I agree that,
start there rather than start with, $8 grand.
but I think
I don't know.
I agree with that. They should all be called in, but at the same time, if you have those keys and no one's around, and if you're dishonest, you're not gonna say go down there and take gas out with your personal vehicle or something if you have those keys and call dispatch and tell them you're doing it. And
True.
right now we don't have any way to see who goes down there and does anything. And I also think that these cameras are important personally, with the amount of equipment that is out at Public Works. It can't fit in the garage. Stuff does once in a while go missing from there.
I would lean more towards that as being a reason to put the cameras up.
That's mine too. I mean,
Yeah.
I know how Public Works, the keys that go to the pump are inside, hung up, and the garage is locked up. Not everybody's got a key
I
in
mean,
the garage.
you could do logs and check the fuel and see if anybody's stealing. That's an easy way to checks and balance to start. But I would agree there, as far as we should have something far as the security of equipment. That'll go along with, gonna cover that too.
So, yeah, that's a good idea to, have them call in their miles to dispatch, so that it's logged down when they're filling
Anytime
up.
that fuels, that way you have some way to, checks and balance.
Yep.
So do we have a consensus to move forward with these cameras somewhere? If so, we need to decide which one we want to go with.
Again, I would like to see where they want to put the cameras and see more bang for the buck. Because to me, the one is only gonna put up 4, the other putting up 6. If we just said we wanted to cover the fuel, only the fuel station, and the rest would be, a bonus on the outside, then maybe we should go back and say, hey, look, this is what we want as the big picture. We want everything covered. Maybe the 6 cameras would be the one we want to go with because it covers more. You know what I mean?
What about, the first guy, the first one wants, or the cheapest one, wants to put one inside, maybe we don't need one inside.
Yeah, what,
Well, here,
inside as
in
far
here,
as-
in the memo here, it says the approach was to walk the vendors around the site and based on the capabilities of the equipment they provided, determine what components were necessary to meet the coverage areas we required. Based on the addition to the Public Works garage, we may need to revisit locations, but our goal would be to monitor the Public Works yard, including the gas and diesel pumps,
Right.
the transfer station interior, as well as the yard from the building to the entrance gate. So to me, it sounds like they already walked these people around.
Yes, and with that in mind, the whole yard,
Yeah.
including the fuel. But then he says that with the new addition,
They might need to what did he say? Revisit locations.
Right.
So they might need to replace them, I would,
second,
So, you know what, we ought to have this on the agenda for August 4th, and then we can talk to Ryan about
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Maybe that's what we should do.
And I'd get more information as to why one thing's 4 and one says 6.
Yep.
And a camera's a camera.
well, not exactly, but yes. Depends on what they do.
Right.
Most of them are wireless too, aren't they?
You wanna be able to log in from the internet and have somebody be able
Mhm.
to check from a remote location to see,
Yeah.
check it once in a while, make sure everything's okay there, nobody's made off with your loader.
Or vandalism,
Right, whether it's the police or.
stealing,
the-
fuel out of the truck
somebody else.
outside, and, you never know what's gonna go on.
True.
Right.
And the other one here, the last proposal, they're proposing 3 cameras. So we have 4, 6, and 3. So we'll have to see what the
Well, that's a good question.
Right, are we just having it passive recording, or is it
Is it
something to
passive
be
recording, or is
monitoring
it
it?
actually gonna be ability to monitor it, dispatch, preferably?
You should be able to monitor. I
Well,
would
if they're
think.
if they're
At
on the
least-
network, they should be able to,
One of them
punch
mentioned
up
that ability, I don't know about the others.
wireless access point.
true,
And it says it's a
monitor.
network service, so
Remote access is mentioned in the, which one is it here, the advanced technology one on page 3.
Yep.
And then are there gonna be any fees to actually connect it into the network? Since these guys aren't our network provider. Yes, what fun.
Yeah.
Although, from my experience, it used to be, once they're on the network, anybody can monitor them. All you do is punch in the IP address for that camera, and you can check that camera anytime you want.
same thing when I was at Target.
We used to do that we used to check the flight line all the time. Yeah, let's check that. But yeah, I would be interested, especially if the other one we go from 3, 4, or 6 cameras. It's a big difference in coverage with 3, 4, and 6 cameras. I like 6, but is it overkill?
For that area, I don't think so, but I don't know.
I
It
don't
depends,
know.
depends
I'm
what
not-
they're trying to do with it. If
Depends
we're
on where
going-
you're putting them in.
Is it more than just the fuel monitoring? Is it, security for all the equipment we've got down there too?
Have the whole area
Yeah,
covered.
I mean, in their walkthrough, did one guy say something, and then the next guy came through and said, oh, and sort of just,
I would think we need more on this.
Yep.
yeah,
We'll
definitely.
put it on August 4th and
Okay.
for discussion.
Hey, at least we got a few things in momentum tonight. No. All right, Dot, Larry, you guys have anything before we leave? Nope. Yep.
No, I don't.
Council, have anything before we get out of here? All right. We'll call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Larry, you want a copy of this by any means? Changes to the ordinance?
I've got an extra copy here if you want it.
I got a couple of them over here, that's why I offered.
Okay.
Yeah, I would.
I penciled in the changes that we're talking about too. Changes to the